Hello, everybody. Um, we will be waiting for our speaker, who should be here in a minute, I hope. And it's good to see you all here. Someone suggested that I do a virtual background of a place in Madrid that might make us feel more like we were there, but I haven't done that. What you see is what you get. Home, happy to be home. And here's Montse now.
Hello.
Hello, Montse. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
People are.
Oh my God. Sorry, my background is very. I'm going to change it.
No, that's okay. I was going to do a virtual background of a place in Madrid, but
That's a good one.
I didn't have time. So you're teaching in an hour or thereabout? You're
Yeah, and a half, an hour and a half. Yes.
Hour and a half. Okay. Well, thank you especially for joining us, given that schedule constraint.
No problem.
I turned the record button on. Is that okay with you? It just means
no
for
problem.
those who might not be able to be here at this particular moment, they'll be able to catch up afterward if they want to.
Sure.
And I've sent out some information from this or that website about your career, about what you've been doing, both as a design strategist at Fjord in Madrid. I guess that's part of Accenture, but also some mention of Buildia, which I'm fascinated about. And
yes.
And I don't know that I mentioned that you're a distinguished architectural photographer, but that's probably how we first met in New York.
Yes, that's how the first time we met, because I was therefore taking some pictures of a building. Yeah.
And you've not only done that for fame and glory and profit, but your work's been exhibited here and there. And what I'm impressed by is the versatility and the interdisciplinarity of your own career. So I hope you'll talk a little bit about that today, not just Madrid, but how you navigate your city and having lived in and worked and studied in New York, maybe some comparisons, but
yes.
That, we talked a little bit about what the discussion might be, and it's entirely up to you how you want to structure it. So, we'll talk, maybe listen to what you have to say for half the time, and then take some time for questions and discussion after that, and then we'll have a dead stop at 11 o'clock New York time, which I guess is 5 o'clock your time.
Yep.
That gives you enough time to get to.
You're
doing a course in systems thinking tonight?
Yes, I am my first class on system thinking at IE. Sorry, I was saying in the wrong way. And I can talk to you a little bit about it as well, but I am very excited about the opportunity and also how system thinking brings together design thinking, but and the understanding or the understanding the needs of the people, but also understanding how those solutions sometimes affects other systems, and the solution is worse than the first scenario, right? So understanding what it implies and the consequences of the design. And yeah, so it's about mapping it, identifying and then leveraging it and finding those acupuncture points that enable you to change a system from with simple actions. But you have to, it's like different levels of depth. It's very abstract, but also very interesting.
And this is in the architecture school, or?
No, actually, it's in the global and international affairs school. So the outcome or the idea is that people who are studying politics and who are studying like public policy, they are able to understand how the where problems come from when they are doing like new policies or new trying to find solutions of social problems, because sometimes the most evident problem or the most evident solution is actually not the best one, right? So try to avoid those kind of things. And the more and more systems are interconnecting, and in the interdependencies are more evident, or not more evident, they are more interdependencies, but they are not so evident, right? So be able to understand how one system affects the other and those kind of things.
Sounds very exciting. Good luck with that tonight.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so what I did, perfect. I've created a presentation. As is divided, some slides that talk specifically about my background and my experience, and the rest of it is about Madrid. And when we go to the Madrid point, I'll share you how I structure it. So first, I will share my screen. Let me see. Compartir sonido. Okay. Okay, so you can see my screen right now.
It says you've started screen sharing, but it has one line of text in a black field. So it's sort of a screen, but we don't see the image yet. It says you've, no, there we are. Perfect. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna present, and please let me know if now it's full screen. Can you see the full screen?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, and now you can see the second slide.
Perfect.
Can you? Because I want to be sure that you can see. Okay, perfect.
No.
Okay, so here we are. Bienvenidos a Madrid. I'll try to.
Let me interrupt for 1 second. There are some gray boxes hiding parts of the image, both the last one and this one. Do you see that on your screen projecting? Is it
no.
Like they're just jumped around a little bit.
Okay, we're gonna do something. We're gonna do something. Let me share screen in another way. That might be more easier. Sorry about this.
That's okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna share, because I was sharing only that part of the screen, but I'm gonna share the full screen now, the desktop.
Okay.
So it should be okay now. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Full screen?
Yes. Yeah. And
can you see?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so a little bit about my academic training. I was trained as an architect in Madrid Architecture School, in the Polytechnic School of Madrid, and it's a different program than you have in the States, because it's for 5 years, or it used to be 5 years plus a final thesis. So it is the equivalent of doing like a master in architecture as well, because all of the background in structures, in math, physics, that's everything in that 5 years, and also urbanism, right? So after that, I moved to China, and I was there living in Shanghai for 1 year. And when I moved back, I did a master in advanced architectural projects that was basically focused in research in architecture. And here is where I based all of my studies and research in how architecture is communicated, right? And I realized two main things that were clear or were very important to move forward in my career. First is that architects have an issue when they communicate to the rest of the society. They only communicate most of the time for themselves, and they don't understand what people are looking for and what needs people have when presenting the information and when presenting their projects. And also that in order to be able to solve this problem, I should not stay in the architecture school, and I should have broader studies in other fields of study. So that's how I start applying for different scholarships, and in order to be able to go to the States. And then I obtained the Fulbright scholarship and La Caixa scholarships that enable me to go to the States to study a master in branding and a master in integrated marketing. And the reason for these two masters is I wanted to understand how other industries are able to simplify the message and be able to promote their products or services in a way that is compelling and talks to them, and they are able to understand why those products are valuable. And then at the same time, that what that creates is more value for the actual building, right? Because people would appreciate it in a better way. So that's why I decided to move to New York and to study this master's. And then what happened with that training is that, well, it's not that what happened with the training, but as Rick said, I've been doing very multidisciplinary projects and work during my career. I just started with architecture in Shanghai. Also, I lived in Chicago and also Madrid. Then I moved into photography, which is something that I keep doing, but not as I used to do, because I was working as a freelance photographer and living out of that for 2 years before moving to New York. And then when I moved to New York, I studied this marketing and branding that enabled me to work in architecture office, such as Citra Radi in the marketing department, in places like If Studio and Conway and Partners, that are agencies for marketing and branding of real estate projects. And here, what I realized is that doing marketing for the sake of doing marketing of a product or a service or a building that you've been not involved from the very beginning was not as exciting and as rewarding as I was expecting, because sometimes while I was doing the research for promoting that building to understand what kind of people would live there, how was the neighborhood, I realized so many insights that those buildings didn't consider for making those their designs. So I said, okay, this is something I don't want to. This is something I don't want to do. I don't want to be part of the promotion of a product that I haven't been involved. What I want to do is to bring all of that understanding of the user at the beginning of the design, same as architects do. When someone asks you to make a house, you start asking them, what do you want? What's your need? What's your favorite? What's your passion? So it's bringing that design mindset, but into design strategy and innovation. So that leads me to the Madrid phase where I am right now. That is basically, I am, it's like a circle back or full circle since I studied architecture. I studied architecture, then photography, then started doing marketing, and that brought me to come back to the design, but to the design from a very pure point of view, not architecture design, but design in general. And that has enabled me to work in Accenture, in Fjord, and Buildia, that is a company that I founded with another colleagues a couple of years ago, that I will explain you more a little bit now. So a little bit about the work I did as an architect. I did exhibitions. I was part of the construction of a bridge in Shanghai. We see a group with multiple bridges, because in some cases it was just the design phase, but also I was able to be in the construction phase. So this is my experience in architecture. And then as photographer, which I could say is probably my passion, and it's something that I love doing. Actually, next Friday I have a photo shoot I'm going to do. But it's something that I love, but not for every day, you know, like I think I want to have the chance to say what project and what architect I want to work for. So that's how now has become my hobby, but my professional hobby in a way. But in these 10 years of experience, I photographed more than 100 buildings. I've had so many printed publications and so many clients. And well, I have had exhibitions. I've been named, I don't know, Rick, if you know this, but I was named one of the 12 women in architecture photography worldwide. some years ago. So it's a very interesting or something that very rewarding for me. And now what I am doing as a design strategist. So I've been, I have like 3 different groups of projects that I've been doing. First, as a freelancer, when I was actually in New York, I helped startups such as Savor or Brainpool. No, actually Brainpool is like an agency of agencies. Citra Rally, the architecture office, or If Studio. I work with them or work for them, trying to simplify their message when they were connecting to audiences online, to redo their marketing strategy, to help them optimize their budget and how they were spending money online to be able to attract more clients. So everything was very brand and marketing purpose or focused. And then in the time I've been working at first, I joined Accenture for 1.5 years. And then I had an internal transfer to Fjord, that is part of Accenture Interactive. And Fjord itself is the innovation department or the innovation branch within Accenture. Is where the kind of projects we do is digital transformations for companies who are trying to digitalize services or products. We help clients to see how the future is going to look like, and then see how those trends are going to affect their current business and what kind of actions they should take in order to be ready for that future. Or sometimes is designing products that don't even exist. When I say designing products, I mean most of the products that we design at Fjord are digital products, like an app, or sometimes it's not just only an app, it could be an experience that is blended between an app and a physical experience, but that's the kind of projects that we basically do. I don't know if you have any questions so far.
For the projects, are they mostly in Madrid and Spain, or are they throughout Europe and the world?
So some of them are, for example, some of them are in Spain. I would say 80% are in Spain, but funny enough, the last 2 projects I've had are, one of them is in Switzerland and the other one is in Spain, but was coordinating their internal accelerator to accelerate pilots and startups in the different geographies. So in that case, I was an international project with a Spanish client. But yeah, I wish it was more international. Actually, it's something that motivates me as well. But well, some of them are, some are not. Some of them are not.
We can save questions for after, but I was just curious about how much you're still getting around. Thank you.
Okay. So a little bit about Buildia. Buildia is a startup or a company that the idea started like 5 years ago, actually while I was in the States. So the CEO and co-founder as well, he is also an architect, and he studied architecture in the same architecture school, and then went to Harvard to make a master in innovation. And there he started to have this idea of trying to unify the procurement process in a building or in a construction, in the process of making the procurement within the construction of any building, and adapted to the Spanish market that is different to the American one, because the American one is much more silo and much more professionalized, but here is much more the same person makes multiple jobs or multiple tasks. So it was like some adaptation that we had to do. So we partner and we started developing it in a more serious way, not just as a fun thing to do the weekends. And 2 years ago, we finalized the actual design of the screens, and we found a partner that helped us, also co-founder, he became a co-founder, that also programmed the full platform. He was a person who I met in Accenture, actually. He worked in Accenture and he left, and I proposed to him to join Buildia, and he did. And here what happened is when we started looking for funding, well, sorry, I'm going to explain briefly what Buildia does that is very unique. So the idea of Buildia is, as a constructor, you are looking sometimes for very specific materials with very specific needs and specifications. So it's very hard to find those materials, and more in Spain, where 95% of all of the construction industries have less than 5 people. So imagine that these companies don't have a proper website, they don't have digital resources to be online. And at the end of the day, as a constructor or an architect, you depend on your previous experience to find the right materials and the right sources for your construction. So here, what we were doing is we would ask the constructor to fill a form with a description of what kind of material, what kind of needs they had, and all of that would be classified following a form. And at the same time, we would have the providers that had already previously filled a similar form with all of the services that they provide. So in case of match, we would notify the supplier that, hey, there is someone who is needing your services. If you want to apply for this opportunity, then you have to fill in this form. Basically, it's like a reverse auction system, and that's the idea behind Buildia. So what I was saying is that at the end, it was actually 1.5 years ago, we just started looking for funding, and then I realized that I kind of dropped the company. I am still a co-founder, but I'm not involved in the daily days actions and decisions. But still, I am part of the founding team, and I work as an advisor whenever they need advice on specific topics that I can help, for product, for branding, for even like how giving some external perspective on some decisions. So I keep collaborating with them quite often, but I'm not part of the daily activities.
Let me just understand the finances a little bit better. Who's paying the fee for services? Where does the money come from?
So the money comes from the subscription. It's a subscription fee. Okay. So we realized that if we got a portion of the quote or a portion of the price of the material, for example, then it would be very easy for companies to jump over us to, how do you say? There is a name for that in English, to
leapfrog.
to leapfrog. And then decided that, okay, people can pay however they want. Our mission here is going to be to connect people, and we are going to be paid for having or providing the best possible connection with the best possible match. So that's for the short term. For the long term, the idea was to actually bring like banks or that would help you with paying. There are some concepts I don't know how to say in English, but to help you to provide you with a credit that you might not have, with very low like mortgages, or no, it's not mortgages, with very low
interest rates?
Sorry.
Interest?
Or for example, like to have like insurance companies who come to Buildia, and we can partner with them, and they can offer to our clients very affordable insurance for their shipping, for example. So we would become a provider of those services, and still we wouldn't charge the final consumer. We would charge then these companies that would partner with us. That's pretty much the idea for the long and short term. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Now, let me talk to you a little bit more about Madrid, which I like to say Madrid because Madrid can be sometimes a little bit mad and a little bit crazy. So I'm going to talk to you about random topics, but because I know and I'm aware that you're going to talk with very prestigious and great architects who are going to explain your specific projects in detail. So I'm going to try to explain you the mood of Madrid and the behavior of Madrid through things that might seem unconnected, but I think could be very relevant for you. So, for example, the first thing that I love about Madrid is markets. For example, we find Mercado San Miguel, which it used to be how do you say, a farms market. They would have like chickens and vegetables and all kind of food. However, they decided to close it, and a big company bought it and redid the whole design of the interior. And now it's like a gourmet tapas place, mainly for tourists, I have to say, because the prices are like twice the price of in outside Mercado San Miguel. But at least they were. It's becoming like an attraction point. It has become like a hub for tourists, and they have very good experience, at least in terms of the good quality of food, because sometimes you go to places that are touristy and they are very, very bad. So at least this is a good place. However, here I was very sad because the people who were working here, that were like old people or young people taking care of the business of their families, they had they were kicked out pretty much, even if they were paid, but they were not given a second option. So even if this is beautiful for tourists, I don't think it's that beautiful for the people who has been working here for years. So I like another kind of market that Madrid also has. For example, Mercado Antón Martín. In Mercado Antón Martín, you find these stores, or these, I don't know how to say, stores, or small shops that are all in a row. Here you can see the hanging hams, or the cheese, salami, and and here next to this there is the fisherman with the fish, and you see like it's very smelly, not smelly in a bad way. It's a place that smells very strong of food, of raw food. It doesn't smell bad, but it smells like food that is not cooked and it's raw. But this is something very Spanish at the same time. Spain has a great culture of food and a great diet, the Mediterranean diet, and we have access to great products. And that's part of the reason that we have so much longevity, right? So what's happening in these markets is that with the rise of markets like the equivalent to Trader Joe's or these kind of places that you might have in New York, people start not going to the markets, to the regular markets as usual as they did. So most of these small tents and small shops closed. Here, what happened is that you would go to a supermarket, to one of these markets, and half of the stands were closed, which was very sad and didn't make you go back again. So what happened in some of these markets is that these empty spots were taken by young people or people who wanted to create, to have a bar or a restaurant, and in a very cheap way, because these places are not expensive at all. So they would open a super fancy bar next to a very old style stand. So you would find places where you can see a butcher cutting a rabbit in half, and next to it you are having an amazing ramen from a girl from Japan that fell in love of Madrid and opened her ramen place in one of these places. So and this is for me what the starting of understanding what makes Madrid so nice. That is that balance between being very casual but very authentic, and you don't really care so much about what other people think, but at the same time, some part of the city does care a lot about what other people think. So we are going to see this very often. Here we can see another example of market, and this brings me to another problem or thing that I think is interesting to know about Madrid. This is Mercado de la Cebada, when it was built, or when in the beginning of the century, and this is how Mercado de la Cebada looks today. It was turned down, and it was a new building was created with very, I like much better the old one, and the new one doesn't relate to the exterior. It's very rigid, and I mean, it's not the best design ever. And for me, more than the design, the problem here is that Madrid has this issue or this pattern that instead of renovating something, there is a tendency to turn down and build again. Sometimes Madrid and Spain in general, we don't see second use of structures, and we don't care so much sometimes about history in terms of industrial archaeology or old buildings. So this is a tradition that I think in the north of Spain is not like this. For example, if you go to Barcelona, you will see how most of the markets, this style of markets, have been preserved, and now they have been remodeled, and they are beautiful spaces. In general, in Madrid, for the culture or whatever reason, things are turned down, and then they make this kind of buildings, and then it's horrible, and now they have to make a new one. So this is an idea for you to have in mind. And I'm being very provocative, just for bear in mind.
Well, let me interrupt, because coincidentally this morning before this call, it was on another call where someone was saying in Madrid, the landmark regulations are very different from New York. Once something is designated as an historic structure in New York, it's protected forever. But if something is designated as an historic structure in Madrid, it can be reversed very easily if people want to. After your talk, we'll be speaking with Arturo Franco, as you know, and he'll talk about the metadata, and that was adaptive reuse. And I didn't know whether it was exceptional and singular or typical, but I agree. I mean, from a industrial archaeology point, from just structural engineering viewpoint, certainly aesthetics or architecturally, there's no comparison between the old and new market. What happens with landmarks? Because we think of Spain as a combination of old and new.
I mean, the issue with landmarks is that we have so many landmarks that everything is protected at the end of the day, and that's also a problem. For example, if you come to Madrid, or in Madrid there is a new building or a new hotel, the Four Seasons. It used to be Banco Banesto. It is next to Sol, and it has been remodeled for more than 5 years and opened some months ago, 1 year ago, something like this. So in that case, that was Bien Interés Cultural, I believe it said, BIC. And what they did was, and this is going to sound very random, but it's true. So the construction company wait for the weekend, turn down the area they wanted to turn down, and Monday everything kept going. Like they wait for the weekend to turn down some areas, and they kept going the next day, and nothing happened because in a way the construction company was already in conversations with the previous government, the previous government that was full of corruption. So they turned down a building and they changed the protection. And the day they changed the protection, they turned down the area of the building they wanted. This is one side of the story. I can also tell you about the other side of the story. For example, there's another project that happened that was made that is Madrid, Plaza de España. It's a very big, also 5-star hotel, but Briu. And I know that project more closely because I photographed the project for Foster & Partners, because they made a project, a design project. So I remember that they were saying, oh my God, this is so extremely ultra protected that we can do nothing out of this. So what I mean is that there is always, we need a balance, because when we are in a city that everything is protected, at the end of the day, it happens like Rome. Like Rome is completely frozen on time because you can do nothing. But at the same time, you have to balance what you decide to undo the protection, and if there are reasons for this to happen. Or there is even a more extreme example, is that there was a monument, like a tennis court that is called Fronton. That is something we play here in Spain, that was turning down in the middle of one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Madrid. And well, no, I am mixing concepts, but it was a project that Foster & Partners was going to make. And I don't know if you know, Norman Foster lives in Madrid because his wife is from Madrid, so he spends here a lot of time. So he wanted his foundation, all of his drawings, all of his models to be in Spain. So he bought a small palace, villa in downtown Madrid from the middle of the beginning of the century, and they didn't let him do anything to the building, nothing at all. So at the end, he decided, okay, I'm leaving Madrid. I'm not gonna make my foundation to look like so bad, because I'm not able to design or to bring down any door or anything at all. So in that case, he left actually. But after some time, he thought twice, and also the city hall changed his approach, and they let him do some changes in the facade. And I think a great decision. First, that they changed the law, because it was not creating any damage to the original building. Some small modifications, but otherwise we would have lost the amazing asset, cultural asset that Foster Foundation represents for Madrid. So always need to find a balance. Okay, so another topic that is also that I love is the bike way. You know how lately Madrid politicians are saying, oh, we are the city with more bicycle ways in Spain or in Europe or in the world. I don't know, because they invent things so much. So here the thing is that, okay, we might have a lot of kilometers, but first you have to understand how many kilometers by person. That's the first thing. And then because then you see how compared to other cities, we are not that high. Madrid has 8.3 kilometers compared to 14 in Barcelona, or Sevilla with 27. And second thing is, where do you place those bike ways? Because Madrid has lots of bike ways all around Madrid. But if I want to go downtown, you see that downtown doesn't have any connection. And it's extremely dangerous to go by bike in any of these ways if you don't have any kind of protection. So at the end of the day, it seems by the numbers that Madrid might be like promoting bikes and other mobility means, but I can tell you as a user that I would never ever go by bike if I'm not protected in ways like, for example, in Sevilla or in Barcelona, you are protected in a way. In Madrid, in Casola Castellana or the main highways, there is no protection. There is just a line that says on the floor bike, but nothing else. You go by next to cars, and nobody really respects the speed velocity or the speed limit. So it's really dangerous. And here you can see how, for example, Paris during the pandemic, how they open Paris to people to go and to cross Paris all the way through, like north, south, east, west. But Madrid is still nothing. So food for thought. Just some other ways visualize the information that tells you there like another perspective, different than just numbers. Okay, another concept and another appreciation or understanding I have of Madrid is that Madrid in a way is like a big village. And this is something that I live in Madrid, I was born in Madrid and I love Madrid, but Madrid has been the capital of Spain for only 400 years, which compared to the history of Spain, we could say is like nothing, right? In fact, there is a fact that is very interesting, is that any big city in Spain, well, before I go to that, to explain you a little bit more about how Madrid became the capital of Spain, Madrid was a small village in the 17th century, but then Philip II decided to move out of Toledo, because Toledo is where the capital was, and decided to place it in Madrid because there were less power of the church, and also the old aristocrats were not in Madrid, so he could like be a little bit free of the tentacles of power and influence. So he decided to move the capital from Toledo to Madrid. So when he came to Madrid, Madrid was like a small village, super tiny, 15,000 people, and everything for doing, because it was like a very rural area in a way. So this has affected, I think, Madrid in so many ways. One of them is, for example, the cathedral. If you see when the Cathedral of Madrid was built in the 19th century. And for example, Toledo one was like in the 13th and to 15th century. And this idea of big village, we can see not only because the architecture, but also on things like local fairs or local festivities. I don't know if you, I guess every culture has this kind of things, like once a year we come together, like all full cities come together and celebrate. In Spain, we celebrate for the saints, we celebrate for everything. And for Madrid, this is a picture of a painting by Goya that is called La Pradera de San Isidro. Is where people in Madrid celebrate this festivity. And here you have, so this is like nature. Here is the river that is not so big as it looks in this painting, but we have a small river. But this is like, you go to the nature. There is not there is nothing but nature to celebrate. Here, there is the other part and a comparison, that is Sevilla. Sevilla has been celebrating La Feria de Sevilla for centuries. It used to be a farmers market, now has become a place for dancing and for celebrating, but they make these houses only for the sake of celebration of this festivity. And it's like a city. Actually, it's like it has streets, they are named, it has lighting systems. So it's like a crazy city that Sevilla makes and builds from nothing in order to make this fair. What I mean with this is that Madrid doesn't have like that infrastructure to celebrate its festivities, and more importantly, if we look at the outfit of these traditions, they are also telling us interesting messages, right? Here we see the Madrid one, and here we have the Sevilla one. Madrid has been a place has been receiving immigrants within Spain, or people that were coming from other areas of Spain for centuries, because it was the capital, so it was attracting people. And these people would come from rural areas. And because Madrid had never been a capital and had never had like a hierarchy or like a culture of how to say, like wealthy people that would interfere or would how to say influence, let's say, the culture. What we see at the typical outfit is the typical outfit that people would bring from pretty much from the villages, right? So here you can see how simple they are, how they hide all part of the body. The head is covered, and even the men are looking like super simple as well. Here you can see Sevilla. Oops, sorry. If you ever go to Sevilla for the Feria de Abril, Feria de Sevilla is an amazing experience. It's a gorgeous experience having one of these dresses that has so many like textures, and how it looks into women, and how men are wearing these beautiful horses, and also women. I mean, it means it's about tradition and wealth, but it's a wealth that has been there forever. Whereas in Madrid, you can see is very fun, but it's another kind of, it's like a big village. Is the kind of message that I want to tell you. And also, if we look at the dance is so fun. Like you can see the dance in Madrid is called chotis. The challenge here is not to move from the tile of the floor. It's like very restrict. Like you cannot really like move. You are like like almost with fear. And in Sevilla, like each movement is flowers, is everyone is dancing, shouting. It's completely different, even the kind of music and rhythm. And finally, for making this festivity like comparison, we have the food. So the most typical food in Madrid is called gallinejas. Gallinejas y entresijos is all of the tribes and all of the things and the bowels that animals have inside. So they are deep fried, and you eat that. That's the typical food in Madrid when you are going to one of these festivities. I have to say I never eat them because for me it's very hard to eat them. But I know it's typical. It smells extremely, I don't want to say bad, but very special. You really need to be used to this kind of smell. But it's the most typical dish in Madrid. However, in Sevilla, if you go to this festivity, to La Feria, you have Spanish ham, you have shrimps, you have this amazing wine that comes from El Puerto Santa Maria. I mean, it's another thing, and it's another status, it's another tradition, it's another mindset that you have in both ends, okay? And any question up to here? Or I'll keep going. I don't want going.
Let's keep going.
Okay.
Questions at the end.
Okay, and we are almost there. So the last topic I want to talk is about the concept of inequality. I'm sorry, this is in Spanish, didn't have the time to go through it, but the original research is in English, so you can go and find it. So for decades, Madrid was a very equal and very, let's say, the difference between rich and poor was very low. Well, it was actually one of the lowest in all Europe. But in the last here what it says, Madrid has become in the last decade to the most segregated capital in Europe, and the second with more social inequality, based on a study of 13 countries. In only 10 years, the city and the downtown have moved from being in the average of Europe to be in the highest level. And this is already a study from 2015, and I don't know the latest one, but I'm sure that based on the politics that I see the politicians have taken, this has increased for sure. And I can even remember when I was coming, I am from a small village that is south of Madrid. I don't know if you can see my mouse, it's around here. So when I was a child, I would come every other week and I would drive this way up to Madrid. And I remember how big buildings and very one of these like blocks of buildings, of brick buildings, were made in the south of Madrid. It's a much more lower income area. However, in the north of Madrid, like these amazing houses, villas, were doing. So what that's creating is this segregation, and people are less connected than they used to be. And for me, that's a bad sign. For some, it's not, but for me, it is. And I know for the long term, for sure, it's a bad sign. This is something also to keep in mind, because everyone is talking about Madrid, how beautiful it is, and it's true. How much is evolving, and it's true. How much investment in urbanism has been made. But here I have to say that those investments, most of them are made downtown. That is an area that is already wealthy and it's already beautiful. But the areas in the peripheral areas is something for you actually to research. I wonder if it's the same amount of money that has been invested. So if politicians are only investing downtown, that is creating even more inequality, because the center is already like wealthier. Okay. So also you can take a look to this. And okay, so final slide, what I love, what I hate about Madrid. What I love is that it's a very fun city. It's a very informal city compared to any other city I've lived, like New York, Chicago, or Shanghai. There are always people walking in Gran Via, even at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 p.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., like no matter what time, there are always people in Gran Via. It's a very lively city. And it's so easy to get along. It's very inhibited. Like you go out alone by yourself in a bar, and I'm sure you will end up with friends by the end of that night. It's an extremely creative place and city. For example, La Movida took place in Madrid. Almodóvar was raised and during that time. So many times it's considered to be a very right-wing city, but at the same time, it was the civil war resistant to fascists. When fascists wanted to enter Madrid, so Madrid fought back, and they were able to. So when Madrid was taken by the fascists after months of war, and that's when really the civil war ended, because it was clear that the fascists would win. But Madrid remain as a reference to hold the fascists back. But now we all think Madrid is fascist, but it's really not. It's like half-half. And also it's organic and chaotic. You can see in the floor plan of the urbanism how chaotic it is. But that being chaotic brings all of these good, positive things. What I don't like so much is that sometimes it still have all of these old behaviors and beliefs of being the capital of the city. You think of Spain, some people think above the other people's shoulder. The rising inequality that I mentioned. There is a wrong understanding of sustainability. For example, with the car thing that the bike that I share with you, that's not sustainability. That's managing in a bad way the numbers for me. Sometimes it's very opulent and pretentious. As I said, for the city center, trying to make it more beautiful. It's already beautiful. Bring that money outside the city center where people really need it. Well, you know how, because of my scholarships, I'm able to have a network of people who that I've been able to see how they have developed in the different cities. So people that were awarded with La Caixa or Fulbright, people from Madrid, when we came back, we are working for the private sector. People in Barcelona that moved back from New York after studying there with Fulbright and La Caixa, lots of them are working for the public sector. So what I mean with this is that it's so hard for people as a young professional in Madrid to go into politics or work as a public servant if you are not involved into friendship of politicians. So the technical view or the technical point is not heard, as it's heard, for example, in Barcelona, that they really take those people with the knowledge and put it in the system. And for me, it's a little bit sometimes of shorter planning. And that's pretty much it. That's it.
Thank you so much, Montse. To get such a personal and comprehensive overview of a city and how it compares to other cities that and other cities in Spain that we don't know as well is fascinating. We've been hearing in other talks a lot about connectivity, and trying to make links between neighborhoods in different ways. And I think your analysis of bike lanes that don't go to the workplace and are only used in the periphery for recreational purposes, is very telling. Other bike share systems and bike lanes have been criticized because of their cost or their relation to use by tourists rather than people getting to work or school. But what would you say the other factors of sustainability are? I mean, and also when you're talking about the hierarchy, not just of the north of the city and the south of the city, Madrid is famous internationally because of the concentric ring roads, including the M30, which was buried, which as an environmental gesture that allowed for Madrid Rio, seems exemplary from afar. In Paris, inside the périphérique and outside was a major class difference. There are many other cities, Intramuros, and not just old cities, Geneva, where the poor people are outside the wall or outside the highway or outside the center. You're saying that's changing in the wrong way? Was that precipitated by the economic crisis, or why is it moving in that direction, do you think?
Well, I have to say that Madrid Rio is not in that part of the. The outcome of Madrid Rio is very positive. I actually live by Madrid Rio, exactly in Madrid Rio, and by connecting the two sides of the city, what they are doing is giving more value to the poor area, actually, so that's actually quite good because is extending to new areas that before were very poor. I don't want to say poor because it's not poverty, but were not as wealthy. And by this connection, you are also creating an amazing park that was completely impossible before. So in those terms, that's positive. I think Madrid Rio is a very good example, which has to be said. I think it's interesting that the guy who promoted it, the politician who promoted it, he was an architect, or he started architecture school, even if he dropped. So he has always been a very open-minded and different guy. He's from the right wing, but he was super progressive for some things. His name is Ruiz Gallardón, and he was a very cool guy. But then he did weird things. But he was the promoter of Madrid Rio. And even if it was so expensive, I think the quality of life has improved so much, and everyone is taking advantage of it. To the question on why they are making houses in the more low-income houses in the south and not in the north, I'm not really sure about that. I think part of the reason is that most of the factories are in the south, so probably it's easier to make it. But for sure, the quality of the air, the landscape is much better in the north. So rich people know where to live. So they also starting. But I'm not able to tell the reason why that difference. But if you see the map and you see the income in the north and the south of Madrid, is really crazy.
Well, just using London as a comparable, there's a historic difference between the west and the east of the city. And part of the effort in the Olympic Games was to have massive public investment, on the east side of London, creating amenities, including recreational spaces and cultural facilities and whatnot. But the historic reason was the wind pattern, which and air quality, which may be an accident of history, where the factory is mostly gone now. But if there's still an industrial base in Madrid that hasn't disappeared, it could be not just the convenience of jobs and production, but I don't know.
Yeah. Then it could be a reason because most of the factories were in the south side.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if there are also people who work in those factories are also in that area, so they also want to stay in that area. So everything goes together. But there has not be like an effort to change that or to
It's
think
very, very,
differently.
very wonderful, provocative presentation. I have 1,000 questions, but I'll defer to any amongst the students who want to ask you something, either about what you're working at, what you're teaching, or your perceptions of Madrid. Any questions?
Lynn, your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And you said you are working on design strategy, right? Optimizing the process and to avoid the program's delays or cost overruns. So would you mind sharing some brief examples of how you achieve these, how you control the schedule and budgets?
That's a very good question, and I'm afraid I don't have a final answer because if I had that answer, I would be a super wealthy person selling books about the secrets. What I do in my daily day is, and what I think really helps is to be extremely transparent when and get everyone involved. When I say everyone, is the client has to be involved and has to understand the responsibility. If you as a project manager need to track all of the steps of the process, and if you see that there is something that is going wrong or is going out of time, you have to involve or communicate that something is going wrong and why it's doing wrong and what are the possible solutions for making it doing right, and like advise or put everyone in the same page before the problem start happening, and have like constant tracking on how things are going, and if there is any problem, share it internally and also with the team. I can say, for example, an example I'm currently doing with a client that is being a very challenging project, and today we realized that there were some internal problems and overcost that we didn't expect. So it's a matter of also conversation. As soon as I understood the problem, I share it with the boss and share it with the client so we can go to an agreement. I know it's a very generic answer, but also I cannot really, it really depends on each situation. But transparency and communication is key. Don't hide anything. And as soon as you understand something is going wrong, raise your hand and share it.
And what skills do you think is the most important in this kind of work, other than keep transparent and keep honest?
When you say this kind of work, what kind of work you mean?
Strategy.
I think again, communication is key, because you can have great ideas, but if you are not able to simplify them and share them with the rest of the people and convince them, those ideas are useless. They are just in your mind. So for me, that's also very important. Be able to share, to communicate and be very specific and straightforward and insightful.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Victoria.
Hi, just wanted to say thank you for a really great presentation. Getting to hear about your background and all over the world, especially, and also in all the various fields you have. I just had a quick question based off of, I guess, from your knowledge base, the different infrastructure and how that, or the cultural practices and how that influences the infrastructure and the buildings in Madrid. Because you mentioned that a lot of it was very historically based, and a lot of the, for example, the historic building qualifications and how that impacts the construction today. Given the more stagnant cultural development in Madrid, I was wondering, in your opinion, how you would foresee these sort of changes would develop in the future.
So I don't fully understand your question. You mean based in the future?
Or just like
So,
developing from right now, like I guess because you mentioned that a lot of like it's because of like I guess like Madrid and Spain and overall is very like historical and a lot of
hmm,
um a lot of social economic cultures and how they have influenced the development of the city. And I
mhm.
guess I was just a little more curious, like because of like the very of how historical the city was. In your opinion, like how do you foresee the development of I guess like
Oh.
the bike lanes or like yeah the buildings and stuff like that, and how if it's they've been in place for such a long time, I guess how do you foresee them to
Hmm.
change and grow in the future?
Well, I think it's even if Madrid is very historical, um, Madrid or the historical area of Madrid, I don't know in surface, but I can imagine it's 20% of what all Madrid represents as a city, right? And I am making this number up, but Madrid, if you see, it's like the downtown is very small. So I don't think sustainability is not possible in a historical city also. For example, for the biking, it's a matter of, it's a decision you have to do if you are making a new street or you are paving a new street, if you want to save one way for bikes or not. If you want, if you do one, okay, so then you can protect it and people can move like within the bicycle and they will feel protected. If you decide not to do it, then a car will go instead of a bike, which is something that happened. It was a decision that was made in a very important street here in Madrid. The local government decided not to make a bike. So even downtown in a historical area, at the end of the day, the willing of the politicians and the understanding they have of really what means to be sustainable and mobility, is what matter for me.
I see. Thank you.
Montse, I'm going to conclude by thanking you so much for the personal perception and the comparisons again. And I look forward to seeing you, whether it's in Madrid or New York sometime soon. And we've been joined by Arturo Franco, who may have heard the last part of your response to questions, and we're just going to continue straight on through. Arturo, welcome, thank you,
Okay,
and Montse, see you soon. I hope. Take care.
see you soon, Rick,
Thank you so much.
and rest of the team, students.
Bye.
Bye. Ciao.
Arturo, welcome. I've shared some of your biographical information from this and that website. So I'll do a very short introduction so as not to take more time than we need to. Uh, you're an architect, a critic, and an editor, and as a critic and editor, your work is focused on the exploration of contemporary Latin American reality, as well as interventions in heritage. You're also a longtime professor at ETSM, where Montse had been in school before, and many of our other speakers seem to have some connection. And your work is phenomenal. Looking at the website and looking at the nature of an interdisciplinary practice. What we don't know each other. What brought you to my attention was the work that you had done at the Matadero, which is an example of adaptive reuse of the highest quality. But we didn't talk at all in advance about presentation. What you might want to present that describes both your work, your thinking, your perceptions of Madrid. By way of introduction of us, if I didn't do it adequately by email, we were supposed to be there in person, and the things that we were talking about vicariously or at some remove would have been much more palpable and physical if we'd made the trip. The pandemic and Colombia's policies about it precluded
I
that.
hope so.
Yeah, so here we are, and I've been saying that virtual field study is both a contradiction in terms or an oxymoron, but we're trying to pretend that we're there, and that we're sitting in your office, not looking at your picture on a screen, and and hearing about what's happening in your city. So with that, as much or as little as you'd like to present, and then we'll have a discussion after that.
Okay, let's see if my English is enough, because I don't speak so well as I would like. So sorry about that. Very sorry, because speak about architecture is very difficult for me in English. But once, many years ago, I had a lecture in English with a Chinese people, and my pen drive wasn't work. So it was terrible, because I must to do the lecture without images. So in English, so that was terrible. So I hope this will be easier.
Well, but
that
your
lecture.
English is, as I could see now, infinitely better than my Spanish.
No, I don't think so, because
and also, for that matter, my English, because I'm from Brooklyn and people don't speak English very well there. So,
how was your holidays in Lima, in Peru?
wonderful. And
well?
I did make much more of an effort to speak Spanish, particularly with my grandchildren, to speak Spanish. And
next time I give you the address, and we can make a meeting with Jean-Pierre and
Yeah.
Sandra.
Yeah,
Barclay.
I was looking at their work, and it's amazing. So, and where their office is not too far from where my daughter and son-in-law live in Miraflores. So, yeah, next time for sure.
It's a good neighbor. So you have a kind of lectures here around Madrid, isn't it? Around Madrid with different architects.
Right. The program, what we've done in the past before the pandemic in Paris and in London and Los Angeles, was to have 20 meetings or site visits, construction site visits, recently completed projects in 5 days. 4 each day, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon.
Great.
With the time difference, not only between New York and Madrid, but also some of the people participating are at home in East Asia during our school vacation. With the time differences, we thought we'd keep it to 2 Zoom meetings a day. 2 hours by Zoom is enough, I think, for anyone. But the people who are joining us are all over the map. We have had, for example, Javier Cami from the AECOM, the country leader for large construction management firm. We'll conclude with Alberto Campo Beaza, who I've known through UIA for a long time. Montse Zamorano is, you may have come across as an architectural photographer, but she's working now as a design strategist at Fjord. But the typical, more of the people that I either knew in advance or looking at current projects include other architects, colleagues of yours, both at ETSM and in practice, Lorenzo, Fernando,
Ginés.
Yeah, Ginés spoke yesterday. So
I teach with him, with Ginés. We teach together in the same classroom. So he was yesterday here.
Yes, that was just yesterday.
No.
He gave a very, very good talk focused on issues of connectivity, the pedestrian bridges, including in Toledo. We've tried to focus on Madrid, but Montse's talk was comparing attributes of Madrid to those of Sevilla and Barcelona. And it was interesting also, for Ginés to look at projects in 2 other cities, including Toledo.
So you have a big expectations if you have seen Ginés yesterday, because he has a very big buildings and a very big territorial work, and I am just the opposite. I have a very small office with very small projects and with not very important. So right now Ginés, for example, has a very big buildings in his office. He has the very best hospital here in Madrid that is amazing, a lot of square meters, and Madrid Rio, as you know, the river of Madrid. Right. So what I am going to show you today is very, very small. It's
Excellent.
most around thinking and most around trips and many examples that are not mine, but are mixed with my job,
Okay.
isn't it? So if you want, we can start.
Yes, please.
Because it's a very long trip around the world and around different moments on the history. So let's go then.
Feel free to share your screen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I am going to share the sound because I have small videos also. Do you understand me more or less? My English, yes? Okay.
Yes, perfectly.
Thank you. Okay, it's amazing to have a lecture in Columbia, New York, because it's a very important university for us that we are Spanish. So I am very proud to be here with you. Thank you very much for the invitation. So as I told you, I am going to speak about many projects and many places in the world. Every of them were visited by me, and all of them are mixed with my work because all together makes a very big thought. I must say. So there are two words that is around these works and around my work, that is tradition and, of course, contradiction. Are similar words, but are very different. Tradition in the relation with accumulate experience, other people experience, and contradiction is to make questions about that traditions. So it's a kind of criticism. So how to look with criticism, isn't it? So that is very important. It's very important for me to know the tradition, to know what is happening in the past, to know how other people has experiences, and I learn around that experiences. And of course, it's very important to me to make me a question. The question is why. It's so simple like that. Why? And so in many of those traditional way of work, I put the question that is why. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not good, but it's not a question of morality, identity, but a question of thinking in another way. So for that is very important. The first and the last lesson that is learn to look at. That is the most important thing we can do at the university, at the school. Learn to look at. Isn't it? How to look at. And the first image I can show you is these two pictures from 1648, an art-made drawing by a theoretical of the Renaissance, that is Philibert Delorme. Is the first no Italian people from the not from Italy. He is from France, and that is very important. Is 1648, as I told you, and he want to show you, or want to show us, the bad architect and the good architect. Do you know which is one? Who could be the good architect and who could be the bad architect? You must make that kind of criticism look at. For example, for Philibert Delorme, that is the name of the architect, the bad architect is the right one, and the good architect is the left one. Why? You can ask you why. Well, for example, the bad architect hasn't eyes, isn't it? So for him, it's impossible to be a good architect without eyes. And also, he hasn't hands. As you see, the architect hasn't hands. He lives in the village. He lives in the forest with a very traditional house, with the roof with two planes. I don't know how to say in English, but the roof, two roofs, as a traditional and vernacular architecture. And at the end, there is a eclectical castle, isn't it? So that is terrible for Philibert Delorme. He is obviously the bad architect. And he is running and work at night, as you can see. So terrible. And the good architect is on the left. He's older, of course. So he has much more experience, and he has a student to teach him, and he lives in a Palladian surround, and he lives at the day, not at the night, and in a very beautiful garden, as you can see, no? So that is the very good architect. He has 4 hands. Do you see the 4 hands, isn't it? That's why he draw very well and very fast, as a very good architect, of course. And he has 3 eyes, one on the top. You can see the one that is on the top. And he has a very small, I don't know, planes, alas, in the feet. So here, there are 2 small planes, 2 small alas. How do you say alas, Rick? Alas.
I don't know.
¿Cómo se dice? Wings.
Wings. Yes, of course.
2 small wings
right.
in the feet. That's to move urgently, isn't it? To go to the work urgently. So it's a very good architect about that. But we must know one thing very important. That is, the very first architect know Italian from the Renaissance, isn't it? So he drew the column that has the French order. The French order is a kind of column that has some vegetables in the middle of the column. So that is terrible, isn't it? So when you see one work of this architect that has that kind of vegetables in the middle of the column, you think about, there is something strange in this guy, isn't it? So you started to think, what should happen if we think that the right one is the good architect? Why not? And the left one is the bad architect. What could happen? For example, you try to think if you must try to think if the good architect could be some people without eyes. What could happen without eyes for an architect? Probably he developed more the thoughts, isn't it? And other senses. And what happened with an architect without hands? Probably should be very good, because his ability for drawing is not the way for his architecture. And that could be very positive, in my opinion. So you can have a different lecture of these 2 guys. And what's happened with the architect on the left? She already knows everything in the world. He's always in the same space of Palladian architecture from Renaissance, always the same architecture, and the same architect repeating himself repeating itself, the same architecture. So that is good. And what's happening with 3 eyes? Probably with 3 eyes, you have sobreexposition of images, isn't it? Think about Instagram, or think about Facebook, or think about the internet. What's happening with a lot of images? That's really good or not? Well, I leave these questions on the air to think about it around all the lecture, and let's see another thoughts. For example, this is one of our very first work in Madrid. As Rick told you, this is the old slaughterhouse in Madrid, just behind the river, and it's the Antiguo Matadero, Madrid. So this is an old slaughterhouse that it has become in a cultural center, and we didn't anything. Nah, something, yes, I must confess you, but we tried to do anything. That is very difficult. I must to promise. I have to promise you. It's very difficult to do anything, because do you remember Ulysses? Ulysses is the hero of the La Odisea, the Homero. Do you remember Ulysses?
The Odyssey, yes.
The great tripper, the great traveler. So Ulysses put his hands in behind to protect him from the fish women, isn't it?
The sirens,
So,
yes.
The sirens, that's right. And that is very difficult. Believe me, it's very, very difficult to do anything. So that's what we tried to do in Slaughterhouse in Matadero. Introducing very few elements, but very strong in contradiction, again, contradiction with the old elements, with the ancient building. So this is the result. This is just finished our work, but our work really doesn't finish it. Never, because we thought that the architecture is a bit of a very big process, isn't it? And our work is just a small space of time in the middle of that big process, isn't it? There is laughing me because my English is not very good. So
perfect.
No, doesn't matter. So this is the slaughterhouse. The slaughterhouse was a very big burning inside, and we live as we find it. So doesn't matter. There is a question here that is very important. Have no problems with the things that are not beautiful. There is no problem with the ugly things. That is very important for us. It's a kind of lose the complex, los complejos. This is the very big old Matadero, slaughterhouse in the middle of Madrid. At the beginning, wasn't on the middle, was the peripheric of Madrid, but through the years became in the middle of Madrid. But that is not important right now. The slaughterhouse was abandoned for many years and get burning. There was toxicoman people in there, so many destroy things inside. So this more or less what I want to speak in this lecture. The first one is it's a kind of explain the tradition, the contradiction, in terms of geometry, isn't it? So the first one is a white one, is the surroundings, the territory. The second one, it seems the tradition. There is a simple circle in the territory. And the third one is when the contradiction gets into. There is some area in the middle that is very, very, very interesting. Is here, isn't it? Is in the middle between tradition and contradiction. For example, probably do you know very well this building? It's a Sweden building. His architect is the well-known and famous architect Gunnar Asplund. So this house has two doors, one to get into and one to get out. Okay. And you can ask you, how is this? This is impossible. The same door could get into and get out, isn't it? But for Gunnar Asplund, there are two doors. And you can see, if you look with attention, you can see what is the entrance one and what is the exit one. For example, Jaimil, do you want to tell me what do you think is the entrance one and the exit one?
Yeah, I'm just like trying to zoom into the image to see at the plan. Okay. So there's, I can see. Okay, on the left one, it seems to be the entrance, and on the right, it seems to be the exit.
That's for the architect. All right. That's the intention of the architect, because you have a cover. When it's raining, you can cover of the water for the water, and the other, the right one, there are big glasses or smaller glasses to see what is happening outside and to get out urgently, very fast. So and the entrance one, it has a symbolic color that is blue, a very soft blue, and a kind of classical squares, isn't it? But do you really think that Mr. Snellman, that is the owner, the first owner of this house, use it like that? No, I don't think so, really. Some people tell me in one occasion, in one lecture, tell me that these doors was also the winter one and the summer one. The summer one, the one is in the left, in the right, sorry, and the winter one, the one is in the left. But that is not important. The important is to think about it, isn't it? So let's think about very important thoughts in the history of architecture. For example, the beauty or the importance of the form. The form. What important is the form, isn't it? What important is the beauty for Vitruvio? Do you remember Venustas, Utilitas, and Firmitas?
In English, firmness, commodity, and delight was the typical translation, although there are others.
That's right. Well, let's try to think about these three pillars of the architecture. For example, in here we have an ancient cave from the prehistoric people. And do you really think that they were worrying about the form or the beauty? They just look at the very best space to be here and switch on the fire, isn't it? That was a very important thing, the fire, not the form, not the beauty, not the decoration, not the style, isn't it? So if we go along the time to another to the 17th century, more or less the same stage than Philibert Delorme, the people who speak about good and bad architect. Here we have a painting by David Teniers II. It's a Belgian painter, and he painted the people in a cave. They are poor people. He hasn't a lot of money. They are, I don't know how to say in English, gitanos, but they're, what, Rick?
Gypsies.
Gypsy, that's right. They are gypsy people. But I like very much this picture because these people are happy. And his spirit is very elevated. And that is the very important thing of this picture. Instead of this one. This one is a very well-known architect, the Romantic architect from Germany in the 19th century, that is the big Carl Friedrich Schinkel. Isn't it? Carl Friedrich Schinkel is the alter ego of Sir John Soane in London. He is from Germany, and he is a very big Romantic architect, very well known. He built the Altes Museum in Berlin, and many other big works. And of course, he was a very good painter, as you can see. But there is a problem in this painting in relation with this other. In here, the people are happy. The people inhabitate the space, isn't it? But in this one, the people are working and are like small forms, no, hormigas, no, like small insects. Yeah. So because they are working in the surroundings of the very big architecture. What kind of architecture? What kind of architecture does interest to us? This one or this one? Let's see in the next images, probably. This is our last work. This is a very small house in Galicia, in the northwest of Spain, and it's more or less like a cave, isn't it? You can inhabit this house like you inhabit a cave. You can use the stone to get up. You don't need to use the stairs, and there is no many things inside. They are not necessary. For example, more or less like this. This is our first project in the slaughterhouse, the oldest slaughterhouse in Madrid, El Viejo Matadero. And his first use was this, sorry. His first use was to be a hostel for 100 students. They hasn't any place to sleep, and suddenly somebody decided that they could sleep here in our project. It was amazing because this was designed to be a small office or a place for the artist, where the artist could work, but suddenly it became in a yacht hostel. That was very amazing, and that broke another big pillar of Vitruvio, that is the utilitas. How is in English utilitas, Rick?
Well, literally, it would be utility. It's
Utility.
usually translated as commodity with
Commodity.
functional and economic implications.
Functionally, utility. That's right. So, and this make us think a lot, because it's really necessary, the utilitas is really necessary, the commodity as an intention of the architect, just to think about it. We haven't the answer, of course. If I should have the answer, I wasn't here, of course. No, sorry for that, Ricky. What's this? This is Lima. Have you been there?
No,
Rick?
no, I need to go
This
there.
is a very big.
Amazing. Where is this?
This is a very big theater in Lima, in Peru, in the capital. And as you can see, there was a very big burn inside, a very big burning inside, but it doesn't matter. What's happened? Nothing, anything. So really, the burn take off all the style, all the decoration, isn't it? But the theater goes on, already works, and you can see there, for example, a very big opera, or many other representations. So that is amazing, and that makes you to think about the beauty, of course, the third pillar of Vitruvio, no? So the Venustas. What's happening here is another small jump in the world. This is not Lima, but it's also Latin America. It's Brazilian Sao Paulo, the very big city made of concrete, with a very big and very good architects there. I like very much. I like very much Sao Paulo, with those very good architects: Lina Bobardi, Vilanova Artigas, Paulo Mendes da Rocha. So many architects, and all of them very good. So here is a photograph of a photographer as your last lecturer. That is Walter Kohn, and he take this photograph in one of these bridges. Isn't it? It's a small gym, just using wheels and using the things that they find in the surrounds. So that is very important, because with few things you can make a home, or you can make a gym, in this case, for people that hasn't enough money. And this is United States. This is United States. Which is the city, the cars city? Which is one? Detroit, isn't it?
Detroit, right.
Detroit is the city for the cars, but Detroit, as you know, is broken down. No? Is economic. The economy of Detroit is going down, or it has a crack. But there are already a lot of cars, and what can we do with the cars? Why not we can get into the very big palace? What's happened? Are there any problem about that? That is the living complex outside, what I told you before, isn't it? So this is amazing, because it's a kind of Sir John Soane. Do you remember the other romantic architect from London, with his breakfast room? Do you remember in History of Architecture the breakfast room of Sir John Soane?
Well, in his house, there was also a sarcophagus in the basement. So, his house was filled with relics, like this theater in Detroit. These are relics, sarcophagi.
Yes, of course. So you can see here a reinterpretation of that breakfast room from Sir John Soane. So this is a very well-known painter, street painter. That is, how is the name? Banksy. Banksy. Do you know that artist, urban artist, and designated picnic area? Just with that words, you can make a project. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You can make a protest. You can make a very big project and a very conflictive project for the politician and for the government. Here there is another project that I like very, very much. Is Isai Kenaba. Is a Mexican artist. Instead of his name is Japanese, but she is Mexican, and he invent this game. She find a swimming pool, empty swimming pool, and she invent the swimming pool basket, the swimming pool basket. And it's amazing because you find an opportunity and you get the opportunity yours. And that is very, very, very important for our job. How to look at and find opportunities in what are you looking at. This is another house made for us or made by us in the Northwest, in Galicia also. And here the dog show us where we can use this element that were thought to sit down inside, but the dog use the chair, the long chair, but behind. And this is very important because dogs are very intelligent. Most of the times, most intelligent than people, I think, in my opinion, because the dogs really knows where they must put in the houses. Try to prove, to make this proof. Use a dog to find the very best place in the houses, and where the dog goes, probably that were the very best place in the house. This is another
shade. There was shade from the sun underneath.
Yes, yes, shade from the sun. That's right. In summer, but in winter, the dogs goes to the other place in the house. So they are very, very, very intelligent in that way. So this is Europe, the south of Europe, the Sicilian island, and is behind or inside, if you prefer, inside the city of Ragusa. Ragusa is a city in Sicilia that has this kind of magical caves inside. And what's happened with these caves? That is amazing because they were fabricated just with engineer intentions, isn't it? So they have some machines that take the stone to fabricate the city that is on the top. Ragusa is a city that has a very big burning in the 17th century, and they must to build up again the city. Then they take the stone inside the mountain and build up the city that is inside on the top. And I like very much this space because there is no intention of architect here. But as you can see, it's so amazing than than a very big cathedral, isn't it? What is more emotive? What is more intensive, a cathedral or this space? I don't know what to say. I don't know, but it's amazing, this one. And there is no architect in here, and there is no form intentions, and there is no beauty intentions. Just to think, it's a lecture just to think, not to say truths, isn't it? This is Africa. It's a hole to take water in El País Dogon, the Dogon country. I like very much because they haven't any money. There is no money there, and they must use the things to the top. No, they must use everything at the end, isn't it? And through the uses appears the beauty, in my opinion. So this kind of tree is amazing. It's very beauty because it has used it a lot of times. This is the house of the world, where the old people sit down here to speak about the future of the village. And I like very much because it's more or less 150 centimeters of higher. So it's no more. Why? Because it's cheaper. The construction is cheaper because it's lower. You use less material. And there is another question very important that make it, this building, perfect, in my opinion, and intelligent, because the old people, when they are parliament about the future of the village, if they have a discussion between them, they can't stand up, and that is very, very important. It's very important about that, because the conflict doesn't go on, isn't it? And the architecture can make these things without money, just with intelligence. This is Bamako, the capital of Mali, a country in the center of Africa, and I like very much this image. I take it in there in a street market, and I like very much because I find here all what architecture could hope, isn't it? So you can find here materials, you can find here structure, you can find here system, you can find here opportunity, because there are some people inside that wants to sell the boots, and he put the boots in this way to show it. So it's very important because the seller is showing the material. They use a structure, they use system, they use material, and of course this system protect you from the sun. So there are a lot of things here in relation with architecture, and there is no architecture in here, but you can think about it as an architect. There is a way to use the opportunities you find in your way. For example, this is another project of our office, also in Matadero, Madrid, also in the old slaughterhouse, but another building. And I like to think that this building is very close to the opportunity. Why? Because we started the work we started building up the project, and during the first month, we find these mountains of tiles behind the building. You understand me? So we find this mountain of tiles, and we thought, stop, we must stop our work because we need to use this material. It's necessary. We need to use this material. And the government, the clients, it was a problem, as you can imagine, isn't it? So I went to the leader of the council people, the technical of the council, and I tell him, Carlos, his name was Carlos, is Carlos. Carlos, we need to use this material, please. It's necessary. It's an opportunity. It's going to be cheaper, the project, and it's going to be better. And Carlos doesn't tell me anything. So we started to work urgently, and we take the tiles also from the roof of our building, and we started to think what happened with that tiles, what could happen with the tiles. Probably we put like this, we are going to find a solution. If we put like this, we find another solution. We were thinking about it 2, 3, or 4 days, not many time because we haven't enough time. And suddenly we decide to put into the building the tiles, and this is the result. It's nice because we use it a very traditional material, tradition contradiction. You understand? So we use it a traditional material, but in not traditional way, in not a traditional way. And I remember I tell the workers, there was a very good worker in this work, in this building, that his name was Jose. And I tell him, Jose, please, do it wrong, do it bad, please, do it bad with errors, with the concrete, not perfect, please. I tell him, and do you know what he tells me? It was amazing. It was a very big lesson for me. He tell me, Arturo, I am going to do it well, because to do it wrong, there is always time. It was incredible, and he do it well, perfectly, as an artisan, very well, and every small step of the artisan incorporate small errors. That's right. And you don't need to go to find the errors. The errors is going to come.
Yeah.
That is a very big lesson, almost for me. And for example, this is a system also. A system, and as a system, you can take off a tile, and it becomes in another kind of wall. You can see through it. This is another opportunity I had in Cuba. This is a Rick. I don't know what time is it, because I have many images more. But well, when you need to stop.
Well, this is fascinating, and we should go on forever. But I think there may be some questions, and at whatever is a good stopping point, we by the hour have maybe 6 or 7 minutes. But I don't want to cut you off if there are things that you want to conclude with.
If you want, as we have many images and many projects, mine and not mine projects, as you can see, we can do one thing. If you want, I ask you to switch on the sound, all of you, to switch on the microphone, and I am going to pass. I am going to pass the diapos, the images,
Okay,
very fast
as we speak. Okay, in the background. fine.
and if you want to stop in anyone, you must say stop, Arturo,
Okay.
and I speak about that image.
The-
It's good for you.
Yes, that's fine. And the other thing, if you would be so kind, if you can, to send us the PowerPoint, I could make this available so that we could look at it again. There are a few students who couldn't make it today.
Okay.
If that's not a problem for you, I've been trying to take some screenshots. The images are so beautiful, but not all of them. So, you know, I didn't take all the screenshots. So that would be a good way of bringing in a little bit more interactive discussion, because I have lots of questions and thoughts, and I'm sure the
Okay.
students do as well.
No, it could be a good joke,
Good.
a good game, a small game, if
Yeah.
you want. But I am going to send you the PowerPoint. That is no
Excellent.
problem. So this is a film. I made a film. I made in Cuba in 16 millimeters. You know, that is celluloid, like the ancient way of make cine.
Tradition
Cinema.
or contradiction?
Traditional and contradiction. That's right. This is a short film that speaks about this guy that is a custodio, a people who look after an old airport. And it's amazing because that airport is full of very big pieces of metal. And you think, why? Because the metal is to protect the island from the American planes. So that's incredible. And we made a short film there. It was incredible with a very good filmmakers from there. Let's see. This is just the beginning.
Wow.
It's 20 minutes of film, but I'm going to show you just the beginning.
It's like a sculpture garden.
It's incredible. It's a landscape art.
Yo traigo palos mayores de Pueblo Nuevo.
With Afro-Cuban music.
Yo traigo palos mayores de Pueblo Nuevo. Yo traigo los angelitos vestidos de oro. Las flores más elegantes de mi campero. Yo traigo palos mayores de Pueblo Nuevo. Yo traigo palos mayores de Pueblo Nuevo. Yo traigo los angelitos vestidos de oro. Las flores más elegantes de mi campero. Oye, yo traigo palos mayores de Pueblo Nuevo. Yo traigo palos mayores de Pueblo Nuevo. Yo traigo los angelitos vestidos de oro. Las flores más elegantes de mi.
This is when he was young, and the time goes on, and then the same people, the same guy watching the airport every his life, all his life, sorry. And this is the big pieces you can find in the airport. Were amazing, absolutely.
Agua ni leo, maribo. Agua ni leo, que maribo.
Well, I'm going. Let's go on.
Okay.
So this
we
speaks
should
about.
also maybe try to wrap it up because it is it's what 6 o'clock in Madrid and noontime here. I like the idea of flashing slides quickly while we talk for a few minutes, but we should probably end pretty soon. I regret to say because there's so many things.
Let me
you know,
let me finish with just one one image.
Okay.
As you can see, there are a lot of images less. So, but I am going to show you just the end one. That is this one. Huh? This is the last one, and for me, this is a resume of this kind of thoughts. This is a photograph from a Cuban photographer. That is his name is Valentin Sanz, and I like very much because it is speaking about what all bioclimatic or sustainable architecture can have.
It also shows what you were saying at the beginning, aprender a mirar, to learn to look at. It's about looking out and feeling. You get the sense of empathy, of engagement.
That's right. But as you can see, she is protecting the sun.
Yeah.
With his left hand, and with the right hand, he's making a space. Huh? Yeah. It's incredible, and she don't need any more. Huh? She don't need material. She don't need. But the most important is in the middle. That is she.
Yeah.
Seen it? No, that's all. Okay.
This is excellent, provocative, and engaging. I feel like I have a perception very different of Madrid and seeing your work. Not just in its engagement with works of art, but in doing things that respect what is there and do the minimal intervention, but then do things that are significant and shake things up, that use things in different ways. I'm also fascinated, by bringing in the Vitruvian principles. One of my schoolmates when I was in architecture school at Columbia was Lorinda Spear, and I see her in Bernardo Fortbrecia from time to time in New York or Peru. Lorinda made this tie, which I show you only because of your. And she also made scarves. She and her daughter went to architecture school at Columbia. And I've talked about Vitruvius, in my lectures elsewhere, including in Paris with a French semiologist who's engaged with the carré. Everything has to be a square. There have to be 4 things, not 3 things. So what we've been talking together is how firmness, commodity, and delight is not enough. And if Vitruvius was alive today, or at least if we reinterpreted him today, and I think it comes from some of the discussions of your image, judgmental images, if you will, of good and bad. The word that I add, along with my colleague, is communitatis, community. Communitas.
It's a good work to think about another 3 principles. To think about it. For example, Wi-Fi.
Why not?
Lefties or stock materials in stock.
Yeah.
And probably the economy. So what you have in front of you, Wi-Fi or technology,
Yeah.
and price. There are another 3 pillars, probably so important like those. I don't know. It's happy to think about this.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about this.
Well, I would love to be able to continue the conversation in person. Maybe there'll be an opportunity to see you in New York and
Mhm.
have a talk at Columbia in person, or maybe we'll all get to Madrid sometime. Yeah, before
I
too
hope
long,
so, Ricky.
I hope.
Rick.
But I can't thank you enough, Arturo. It's always hard to impose on someone that you don't know. And this talk has been amazing for me, and I hope for the students. And I thank you for it. We've recorded it. The visual file will be extremely dense, but the discourse, the verbal, the recording, we'll post on our website to go along with these images if you are so kind as to send them. Or I'll compress the video file perhaps, but thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much, all of you.
And we'll see, we'll see you someday, I hope.
I hope so.
Maybe in Lima. Maybe in
United
Lima.
States or
Okay.
in Lima.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Thank you very
Cuba,
much.
you know.
Well, it could be good.
A little bit harder,
Also.
but why not? Take care.
Thank you very much,
Goodbye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye bye.